Marcus Chen wiped the sweat from his weathered brow as he surveyed his cornfields one last time. The evening sun cast long shadows across the Iowa landscape, and he felt the familiar satisfaction of another day's honest work completed. At 62, he had spent his entire life coaxing crops from the earth, following the same rhythms his grandfather had taught him decades ago. The silver disk that descended from the darkening sky changed everything. The Galactic Council's first contact protocols were efficient, if impersonal. Within hours, Marcus found himself aboard the Stellar Harmony, surrounded by beings whose very existence defied every assumption he'd ever held about life in the universe. The Zephyrians resembled crystalline trees, their thoughts communicated through harmonious chimes. The Korthok delegation stood on multiple legs, their carapaces gleaming under the ship's artificial lighting. And the Veiltar, seemingly made of living shadow, flickered at the edges of his vision. Human Marcus Chen. The lead Zephyrian's melodic tones filled the chamber. We require your species' assistance. The galaxy faces annihilation. Through the vast viewing portal, Marcus watched as holographic displays materialized, showing star systems consumed by an advancing wave of darkness. The Devourers, as they were called, had already consumed 17 civilizations in the Outer Rim. Their biomechanical forms adapted to every weapon, every strategy the combined fleets had deployed against them. We've studied your species extensively. A Korthak general's mandibles clicked rapidly as he spoke. Humans possess something unique, an instinctual understanding of biological warfare that surpasses even our most advanced xenobiologists. Marcus almost laughed. You've got the wrong guy. I grow corn and soybeans. I'm not a soldier. The Veiltar. Representative materialized more solidly, its form rippling like smoke-given substance. You misunderstand, human Chen. We do not seek your military knowledge. We seek your agricultural expertise. Over the following days, Marcus learned the true scope of the galactic crisis. The Devourers weren't just destroyers. They were farmers, of a sort cultivating entire worlds to feed their endless hunger. They had perfected a form of biological warfare that turned planets into vast feeding grounds, transforming native ecosystems into biofactories that produced nutrients for their expansion. What the galaxy's greatest minds had failed to grasp, Marcus understood immediately. You're fighting the symptoms, not the disease, he explained to the assembled council, his calloused hands gesturing over the holographic displays. These Devourers, they're like any other invasive species. They succeed because they encounter no natural resistance. The Zephyrians' chimes grew discordant with confusion. We have deployed every weapon in our arsenal. Nothing stops them. Marcus smiled, the same patient expression he wore when explaining farming to his grandson. That's because you're thinking like warriors. Start thinking like a farmer defending his crops. He spent the next week teaching the galaxy's greatest scientific minds concepts that seemed almost primitive by their standards. Crop rotation, companion planting, biological pest control, natural resistance breeding. The Devourers have adapted to every direct assault, Marcus explained, pointing to the bioscans of their enemies. But adaptation takes time and energy. What you need is something they can't adapt to, something that hits them at their biological foundation. Working with teams of xenobiologists, Marcus developed a strategy based on principles as old as agriculture itself. Instead of attacking the Devourers directly, they would poison their food sources, not with crude toxins that could be adapted to, but with subtle genetic modifications that would disrupt their entire feeding cycle. The Korthak scientists initially resisted. This is too simple, too primitive. Simple doesn't mean ineffective, Marcus replied. Back home, we've been fighting crop diseases and pests for thousands of years. The most effective solutions are often the most elegant ones. The plan they developed was indeed elegant in its simplicity. Using modified spores based on Earth's mycorrhizal networks, they would seed the Devourers' conquered worlds with what appeared to be perfectly suitable food sources. These modified organisms would flourish initially, encouraging the Devourers to spread them widely. But embedded within their genetic structure was a time-delayed modification that would fundamentally alter the nutrient composition of everything the Devourers consumed. Marcus called it biological crop rotation on a galactic scale. The first test came at the Kepler 442 system, where a small Devourer scout force was preparing to transform 3 agricultural worlds. The Council's fleets held back as automated seeders deployed Marcus's modified organisms across the planet's surfaces. For weeks, nothing seemed to happen. The Devourers proceeded with their usual consumption patterns, converting vast swathes of terrain into their biofactories. The Council grew restless, doubting the human farmer's unconventional approach. Then the cascade began. The modified organisms had done their work silently, altering the fundamental chemistry of the Devourer's food web. What had once nourished them now slowly poisoned them. Their adaptation mechanisms, so effective against direct attacks, couldn't cope with the systemic breakdown of their entire nutritional foundation. Within a month, the Devourer presence in the Kepler 442 system had collapsed entirely. News of the victory spread throughout the galaxy faster than any subspace communication. The impossible had happened. The Devourers had been stopped not by superior firepower or advanced technology, but by the agricultural wisdom of a single human farmer. Marcus stood once again before the Galactic Council, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Where once there had been desperate hope, now there was profound respect. Human Marcus Chen. The Zephyrian's melodic voice carried harmonics of deep reverence. Your species' knowledge has saved countless worlds. How do we properly honor such a gift? Marcus looked out at the assembled representatives of dozens of civilizations, each more technologically advanced than Earth could dream of becoming. Yet they had all been helpless against an enemy that he had defeated with principles his grandfather could have understood. Just remember, he said quietly, sometimes the old ways are the best ways. And never underestimate what a farmer knows about fighting pests. As the stellar harmony prepared to return him to Earth, Marcus reflected on the strange turn his life had taken. He was still just a farmer from Iowa, but now the galaxy knew that Earth's greatest weapon wasn't nuclear fusion or quantum mechanics. It was the accumulated wisdom of 10,000 years of human agriculture. The universe was vast and filled with wonders beyond imagination, but at its heart, the same principles that governed his cornfields applied everywhere. Respect the natural order, understand your enemy, and sometimes the simplest solution is the most powerful one. Marcus smiled as Earth grew larger in the viewing portal. He had crops to tend, and now he had stories that would make his grandson's eyes widen with wonder. But mostly, he was just ready to get his hands back in the soil where they belonged.